I'm going to call this meeting of the York County Council to order. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be by Robert Winkler.
Lord, thank you for another day. Thank you for the beautiful sunshine today. We ask for wisdom tonight as we go about the business of the county and the people's business, Lord. Just ask you to give us the wisdom to make the best decisions for everyone involved with the information given. Thank you for all the many blessings you give us every day. Give everyone safe travel, please, as we go our separate ways. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under appearances, would David Hughes please come up to the podium? David, I want to thank you on behalf of York County for your years of service from October 24th, 1994 to January 24th, 2020. And I want to say this, we were in a meeting the other day, and we were talking about water, sewer lines and thing, and someone said, well, as long as one employee doesn't quit, we'll be fine. And then they told me you're that one employee. So be prepared to be called up into action again. Thank you very much for your service, York County.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel free to give any remarks you'd like.
I'd like to say a couple of things. Thank you so very much. I feel fortunate in a number of ways. I've only had to appear before the full council twice in my career here at York County. Tonight, which is a happy and a positive thing. And then I had to appear and explain why the county needed to spend $10,000 to pay a DHEC fine for spilling wastewater. And I can tell you that was not a positive and well, happy day. So thank goodness that hasn't had to happen a lot. We've all heard people say through the course of their careers and working that you just wait. When I get my chance, I'm going to tell them something. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to really tell them. And I'd like to say this. Thank you so very, very much for allowing me to have a career, to work in the field that I was trained in, that I worked in before. Men like Clay Killian, Al Green, Lynn Bramble, and Tim Kaiser, they were the management group over county management and over engineering management. And they accepted me in, opened the door for me, and I came in, and it's been a wonderful career, a wonderful opportunity. I could not possibly express how wonderful it has been. It's had troubles, it's had tough parts to it, and what job does. And I've only had to fire one man, and he was continuously complaining about his job. And I said, have you ever had the perfect job? And he said, oh no, I never had the perfect job. And I said, because it doesn't exist. There is not a perfect job here. I'm just so thankful. I want to thank all of y'all as representatives of the county government and also your constituents, which I understand is probably a tight wire sometimes that you have to walk. I would urge you to use caution, listen to the employees here at the government too, because sometimes they get information told on them that's not always correct. And so, once again, thank you so very much. It says on my job description that I'm to respond to emergency calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So basically I've been on call since I started this job. That was 8,860 days ago. And I'm getting ready to go off call now. So I want to thank you again. I want to thank everyone involved again. It's been wonderful. God bless you all, and good night.
Thank you.
Under public forum, I want to remind you that you get 2 minutes, and we would ask that you give your name and address. Melinda Woodhurst.
Hi, I'm Melinda Woodhurst, 2752 Bonnie Brook Circle, Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm here to express my sincere appreciation for your support for the relocation of the Veterans Affairs Office to its new building that's projected in the Heckle Complex. I served the United States Army for 26 years, have 2 combat tours, and I am fortunate to be a retired colonel and blessed to serve as your Veterans Affairs Officer for York County. I am mindful that the dollars that we spend in York County are residents' dollars, and I know that every penny counts. So your support for our renovation and for our move means so much to every veteran and their family in York County. The proposed building is beautiful, it's efficient, it provides the privacy that our veterans need to do the claims that we have to do, and it has exceeded all expectations. So on behalf of the veterans and the families of York County, please accept our sincere appreciation for your support for the upcoming move. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. Tiffany Knight.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Knight. This is my first time at a council meeting, so I'm going to hold off and see how everything runs so that I am prepared for my next visit. So I apologize for my name.
Well, thank you. Anyone else want to public forum? All right. Consent agenda. Does any council member have an item to be removed from consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. New business number 1, council to approve additional funding regarding the purchase of furniture from F3 Concept LLC of Irmo, South Carolina via state contract award for the Heckle Government Complex renovation project for a total cost of $333,346.01.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Council to discuss and consider procurement of a pumper taker for Bethel Volunteer Fire Department.
Pumper taker.
Pumper tanker.
Tanker.
Is there
Just would
is there a
like,
motion, or I think you make it after?
okay.
What is the motion to, because it's a discussion?
Well, I guess we would have the discussion first, the way this is written. So is there any discussion?
Well, just to make a point of order,
Dr. Blackwell?
and I just want clarification and maybe point out something we may need to do in the future. Essentially, this was a failed motion some 5-6 months ago, I believe. Too late to do a motion to reconsider. So per most procedural, Robert's rules, whatever, the option would be a new session. So then it becomes, well, what's a new session? So talking to Michael, our county attorney, it looks like we've never really clarified that other than to say each council meeting's a session. So based on that, I guess, for me not seeing any, my concern is not so much the pumper tanker right now. My concern is just making sure we follow proper procedures and process. And that's my only concern. You know, the pumper tanker's another secondary consideration. We're not at the state level, but at the state level, if this had been tabled when we talked about it 5 months ago, then with a new budget, we could bring it back up during that 2-year session. There's a 2-year session with the state. So if the first part, the first year, it was tabled, it can, new budget year, they can bring it back up off table. If it was a failed motion, they cannot bring it back up, and it's called a dilatory motion or something to that effect. So it comes down to, like I said, session would be the next time it could be brought up, a new session. The state is 2 years. We're looking at 4 months. So if, per the definition, each meeting's a new session, we could keep voting stuff down and the next meeting to do it all over again. So that's not very practical, so we may need to address that in the future. But that's my concern.
And prior to this being placed on the agenda, I had a conversation with the county attorney, Mr. Kendry, and he told me at that meeting that this could properly be brought forth. That is, but for that, it would not be on this agenda, but I do recognize your comments, and we should certainly try to define session and get a better sense so that we all understand exactly what can and can't be brought forward. And I don't have any problem with this council doing that. Mr. Roddy?
I was just gonna say, I can understand the concern, because if we do vote something down one week, next month, can I bring it right back up to put it back on? Next month, can I bring it back? So I would welcome the conversation to have to address this going forward. We've never really had this scenario kind of come up. And going forward, it would be nice to have some kind of groundwork or guidelines if we're gonna put some distance in between 3 months, 6 months. That would be welcome going forward. But for us, discussion on the pumper tanker, I've talked to Allison about it on numerous occasions, and I supported her the first time this came up. So looking forward to, if we have to do a couple readings or if we're just gonna vote it through tonight, I'll support it.
So, part of the reason that this is so important, that it be brought back up, and I do recognize that same concern that, Councilman Blackwell has, that, you know, we need definition in everything that we do. So I recognize that concern. But part of the reason that it's really important, that we do bring this back up is that, number one, we need the pumper tanker, and it's a public safety issue at this point, and I could give examples, but I think I've given enough examples over the past time, the past request. Another reason that this is very important to Bethel Fire Tax District is that because we've had this money in our general fund for so long, anticipating the purchase of this, we've also not been able to qualify for grants because we have the money. It appears that we have this money, and you know, in essence, mentally, we have spent this money on a pumper tanker, and we don't want to, you know, we don't want to not get grants going forward, and this is an apparatus that is needed in the district. So I would just ask that everyone consider that and support it tonight.
Mr. Hamilton?
Well, my only concerns are again, not so much with the pumper tanker, but I have serious transparency concerns just with regard to our policy. If we're going to have a vote on something in a public hearing and then several months later put it back into the agenda, especially if we're considering voting on this tonight, I certainly wouldn't support having any vote. That seems like a rather sneaky way to sneak something back into the agenda without the public's involvement or without any transparency. Again, my concern isn't necessarily the pumper tanker. I didn't support it the first time around, and I don't know if my opinion has changed. This is sort of a surprise to see this on the agenda. But I do have concerns about whether or not just because we can do something, if that means that we actually should. And it's not necessarily this issue, but like I said, it's a rather, I think, kind of sneaky move and erodes the trust the public has in us if we're having public hearings and comments and then having a final vote and then sneaking something back onto the agenda several months later.
I'll just say I share the concerns as far as how we, get things back on the agenda, or there's been a few things I've lost votes on that I'd like to bring back up a few months later and have them revoted. But my understanding, and maybe it's a little overly simplistic, is that basically what we're looking to do tonight, we've been talking about this for a long time, but we've been talking about it without a whole lot of detail. I mean, we've talked about a pumper tanker, but we have no idea what the specs are on the pumper tanker or what the costs are on it or anything else. So my understanding of what we're doing tonight would be to consider procurement, meaning let procurement put out a RFP, RFQ, whichever one it's called, and start having the tax district put together the specs and what they're looking for, so that maybe by the time we roll around to the next year's budget, we might have something more concrete to vote on than a big round number that somebody just came up with that we really don't know if that number's even accurate or not. So if my understanding of that is correct, and that's what we're doing tonight, is just saying, okay, well, yeah, let's put some numbers, put something on the paper, and let's figure out what this spec would look like and what the cost would be. Then, I could support moving forward with that, and we're not buying it tonight by any means.
Nope.
So, we're just saying, let's figure out exactly what it is we're talking about buying. We've talked about it and don't even know what it looks like or what the shape is or how long it is or anything else. We just talked about it for a long time.
Ms. Cox?
At the risk of saying me too, I think I do share the concern that we bog down our agenda. But I guess, and I wasn't one of the council members who asked to put this on the agenda, but I would like to have some feedback from our legal counsel as to, I guess the way I looked at this is that this was the beginning of a new budget year, a new budget cycle, and I share Robert's perspective. My understanding is let's use this as an opportunity to do what we did in Newport, to do the due diligence to figure out what this looks like and potentially for consideration at the next budget cycle. So, I mean, I've given you an opportunity, Michael. There's been a lot of discussion about what you said. I'm just going to make sure that if there's anything that you need to add to that you've done that.
Thank you. I share your view of what this item is actually intending to achieve, which is a beginning of a procurement process. The question was raised whether there was a prohibition from putting an item that was not passed by council, did not receive a successful vote, positive vote in the affirmative back on an agenda at some subsequent period of time. And there's no prohibition on that. And to the extent that there needs to be clarity in the rules, certainly welcome offering options to council on how to achieve that. But this is simply a matter of governance, placing an item on an agenda. There's a process in our rules for putting items on the agenda that was followed and is now before council.
I think in that vein, I believe that Finance and Operations Committee is charged with the responsibility of taking a look at the process and procedure. So if we need to do that, I think we should take that up and look at it, unless the council wants to take that up as a whole. But I guess in terms of discussion, I share Robert's take on this, which is there certainly is no harm in taking a look at what this looks like and how it serves the people. This is certainly a money that's sitting in a special tax district fund. This isn't general fund money, and the special tax district board, like to hear from them too.
I did not, Mr. Black, Dr. Black, speaking of that process, I know that with the new chairman, he's big on committees. I feel like they can be many legislative bodies that are not the right way to go, but speaking of that, this didn't come back through our Public Safety Committee, which we talk about having to go back through committees. But that aside, how many times, I'll ask Andy, how many times have we done a spec procurement thing before it's been approved? Just out of curiosity.
Typically what happens is it's a budgetary item. So in this case, through the budget process this year, there was a motion made to add it to Bethel's budget. That motion was denied, but had it been approved, at that point it would have triggered them going through the specification process, but it still would have come back to y'all for approval of purchase. In this particular instance, it's going to follow the exact same thing. They're just beginning the specification process, so they know how much it's going to cost, and quite frankly, it puts them about 6 months ahead of where they would ordinarily be through the budget process to get this thing manufactured and built.
So you're saying this is not unusual to do it before we approve it?
No, it's not unusual. Typically, you would approve a dollar amount that's a ballpark for any piece of equipment through the budget process, and then whatever department it would be, it fire, be it Public Works, would then go through and spec it out and
So the norm is for us to provide the money and then get the specs. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's how it would happen. In this case, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I think from a timing standpoint, I don't know that it's problematic.
Mr. Roddy?
Back to the procedural part. So I think that's something that we really need to tackle, because we I mean, looking forward, we always gonna have things that come up. I mean, some of the bigger things that we're dealing with now, if we turn some of those down, how long do we wait to put those back on there just because it gets turned down? Because I think that's one thing that we really need to nail down, because we got some real big items ahead of us. And if we do turn those down, do we tell, whether it's a purchase, whether it's a organizational group, well, now you have to wait 4 months, 6 months, or a year before we're able to even bring this particular item back up. So I think we really need to have that discussion. And it's two separate items. One is having that discussion of, two, how do we handle the pumper tanker situation? I think we can discuss both of those, but those need to be two separate items, because regardless of whether we do anything with the pumper tanker, we still need to establish our guidelines to bringing things back up, because there are some big ticket items, like I said, that's kind of waiting in the wings, and I like to see how that plays out. If they don't go through now, 6 months or a year down the road, how do we handle that? But and I wasn't prepared to approve a dollar amount to give the go-ahead, but since this says to discuss, I was thinking we have these discussions and start to see what it looks like with a pumper tanker, because it's still, the dollar amount has to be approved, the specs has to be approved. I don't think that's why it was put on the agenda tonight, to say, hey, approve a dollar amount, let's move forward, blah, blah, blah. So this, to me, was just, would you support moving forward with looking into, no decision was expected to be made to make a purchase, at least that's what I was under the impression, but I was prepared to say, hey, let's look to see what a purchase would look like, because we've had some heated discussions about the pumper tanker, and I don't think too much of that's gonna change, but at least take that next step of what's the next step for staff to take, what's the next step for council to take if a pumper tanker is to be purchased.
So is that what we're gonna do? Just consider
The motion,
no motion?
there is no motion. However, all we are doing, we are not voting to spend money tonight.
No.
That is we only do that through 3 readings in a budget process. That is not being done tonight. Tonight, we are purely here to determine whether or not this issue can begin the procurement process to determine what it would cost. It will then have to come back before council in a full budget to be voted on whether or not we pass, whether we allow it. That would happen no matter how we did this. If we'd have passed it 6 or 8 months ago when it came up originally, it would have still gone through the procurement process, gotten finalized numbers, and then come out, and we'd still had to have voted it through. That is all we're doing tonight.
So we're not approving it officially, we're just saying we'll allow
The procurement
process and
process
specs and come up with a figure for us to approve or disapprove.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
So that being said, since it's not an unusual procedure for Andy, I'm okay with that.
All right. I also I will weigh in on this, and I appreciate that, Dr. Blackwell. I believe back in March of last year, Ms. Cox and I attended a seminar, came back with model rules for county councils to follow. I'd love to see us adopt either those rules or a very clear-cut rule so that every one of us up here understands the rules every time we vote. I agree with Dr. Blackwell. I think a 1-year session is proper. I don't think you should be able to vote something down in the very next month we have to re-debate what we just debated. That is improper. The way the county council works, I think 1 year is probably enough, especially if you go budget to budget cycle. That would be mine, but I'd love to see, and I know that finance was looking at that at one point, or I thought you were.
We actually brought it before council, and the council decided that the changes that were gonna be made, because I believe Michael Kendry spent some time preparing a draft, and the council did not want to move forward, but we'll be happy to put that on there. And I think I would just add, this particular issue did not come up, but I think we do need to make sure we give ourselves some flexibility, perhaps doing a supermajority to bring it back up for change or changed circumstances. But I mean, I don't disagree with your approach to that, but I'll be happy to put that on the next F&O agenda.
As long as everybody understands the rules, we can have supermajorities, we can have anything, but I think we all have to understand those rules.
And I feel very strongly about the procedures. Like I said, the pumper tanker was not a focus when I came to the meeting tonight. I want to make sure that the integrity of the process is guaranteed, and per the South Carolina Association of Counties Procedures Manual, or whatever they call it, this is not addressed. Because I went through it inside out, and it's
We need
just not addressed.
We need to not only
And Robert's
have rules, we need
rules-
to add this as a rule. So-
Robert's Rules doesn't address it either. It just says session, and then I go to Michael and say, Michael, what's a session? The state's 2 years. Oh, it's every meeting. What? So, I mean, he kind of mellowed me down after we talked right before the meeting. So, I mean, if the rule allows it, who am I to, but we got to fix the rule.
Is there a motion to allow us to move this towards procurement?
Yes, sir. I make a motion that we consider procurement of the pumper tanker for Bethel Volunteer Fire Department.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All is, Mr. Hamilton.
I just want to point out so that the public understands what we're doing here. We're making a motion to consider procurement for a piece of equipment that was voted upon by this council and did not have the support of this council within a few months of that vote. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
I'd like to clarify one thing also.
Ms. Love.
Rather than bite my tongue, I'm going to go ahead and say what's on my mind. When we came before this council, when the fire tax board came before this council, fire chief and a lot of the community, there were 4 votes for this pumper tanker. And one of the council members asked a question, and the information that was given at third reading was not clear. And one of those 4 votes, we ended up with 3 votes. That's why this is back on this agenda. It's why I've asked for this to be back on the agenda. I ask immediately that it be put back on an agenda. And if we're thinking that that could have been done, then that is the procedure that should have been followed. But what I was told is that we need to wait, that a couple of council members had asked that we wait until the first of the year, and that's what we did. So here we are at the first of the year having a big discussion about something, and I think sneaky is a horrible word to use because there is nothing sneaky about this. And I also want to say that this fire department has been through a lot. They've been through a board that was a problem that we disbanded. I put together a board of very strong people from the fire tax district. And I want to remind everybody that this is a fire tax district. It's a District 2 fire tax district. This is my taxpayers' dollars that we're looking to spend for a pumper tanker for the people in District 2. So it doesn't affect any of your taxpayers. And I am so conscious of the tax dollars and how we spend those tax dollars. We have a very frugal fire chief. We have a very solid board that is very discouraged because they've put so much time and effort. They came along late in the game, and they had to do a lot over a 2 to 3 month period to catch up. They spent hours and hours. They had meetings that were 3 and 4 hours long to determine what that budget needed to look like. They worked with Amanda, they worked with Kevin Madden, they worked with me, and we came up with what we felt like was sincerely and desperately needed for District 2, for the Bethel Fire Tax District, part of District 2. And to have been denied that has cost us not only in the added expense of what a pumper tanker is going to cost us now because the price has gone up. It takes a year to get the pumper tanker after we order it. And we've missed out on grants that we would have qualified had we spent the money on the pumper tanker. So my taxpayers have elected me to represent them, and I do that to the very best of my ability. What I'm asking you to do is to not accuse us of being sneaky and putting something on an agenda, because I would never do that. Chairman Johnson would never do that. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is very simple. Will you just let us get a new price for this, come back to you with that price so that we can hopefully order an apparatus that is needed in my district, due mainly to the fact that we don't have fire hydrants everywhere that they need to be. We're very different from the city of Rock Hill and a municipality because we aren't covered when it comes to fire hydrants and water. We have a private company providing our water that sometimes can't even provide the water. And when we go to a fire hydrant, there's a dribble. So what I'm asking you in the name of public safety is to consider my role as a council member representing a fire tax district and a fire department who I have all the confidence in, a fire tax board who is diligent on spending these dollars and looking out for these tax dollars. I've got 3 board members right now who are considering resigning from the board because they're so discouraged. You know, I'm going to add a little bit to this because I was going to say this in the comments, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now because it pertains to a lot of things, but it mainly pertains to us. Putting people on boards and commissions and having the confidence in those people. You know, if we want to micromanage these boards and commissions, which is what we're doing right now, for a district that is one person's district, you know, Joel, when you have something in your district that you believe in and you believe is right, I'm going to support you on that. Because I don't want to micromanage and tell you what's right or what's wrong for your district. And that's all I'm asking in return. I don't want to have a discouraged board. I worked very hard to put this board together. I have begged them to stay in place until we can get this pumper tanker. And because they put so much effort into it. I've put a lot of effort into it. Why? I just can't even imagine why anybody would say no. I can't imagine why we had a no. You know, we had those 4, we had a vote, 4 people, 3 of you were going to vote for this pumper tanker. We did 2 presentations, and I appreciate, you know, Robert and Christy both came, and county management came and saw. We of course we got a call right in the middle of it, and everybody had to get up and leave. And one of those presentations was without the apparatus even sitting there, but you know, we had the community there, and we showed everybody why we needed it, what it looked like, with and without it. And only 2 of you came to that. And so I'm very frustrated myself because I need your support on something that's very important to my district.
Dr. Blackwell. So, I do, as chairman for 8 years, I know I'm about to do something I shouldn't do, but as Allison would say, I can't hold my tongue. But the situation when we made that decision was county management and our expert fire consultant said that was totally wrong to do. And I trusted their judgment as the experts on this, and especially looking at the count and how much, and Robert could tell you better than me how much it holds and all the factors there. But, and I would ask that you not talk about micromanagement. I would think probably on this council, you would probably be the least person to talk to us about not micromanaging.
I almost stopped when Ms. Love said Councilman Hamilton's name. We are not here to go after one another. We're simply here to have discussions.
Agree.
Let's try not to direct any comments at any specific council person and more to the body at large, if we can. We're getting very worked up on
I have a comment
procurement
along those lines.
motions.
Right. My only,
Well, Dr. Blackwell has the floor. I will get to you.
The floor over to Joel, but, and I understand, because as I expressed myself, I'm very concerned about procedure, but at 5:45, when Michael and I talked, he said, the way the system's set up now, this can be done. And that's why I accepted it. But I felt as stronger than Joel about this. And I don't disagree with any point he made, but that being said, I'm gonna be quiet now.
Raise your hand.
I think the conversation has wandered into the merits of the purchase of the piece of equipment rather than the procedural issue, which is actually before this body. I don't think anyone is questioning the work that was done or anything regarding the actual piece of apparatus. The issue that's before us right now is whether or not, and my point that I was making, and I want to make sure that we're clear, is that we're considering procurement of a piece of equipment, the merits of which we've already debated. We're considering that procurement after we've had the vote and it didn't pass. That's my point that I want to make before we vote on the motion. So if that's what I would like to do, is to vote on the motion.
Your point is well taken. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
The motion passes. Committee and other reports. Finance and Operations Committee, Chairwoman Christie Cox.
Finance and Operations met today at 5:30 to consider board appointments, and we approved Sam Leslie and Leah Woodward to the Riverview Fire Tax Board. Marion Ramsey for a first term for the at-large vacant seat for the Veterans Park Advisory Committee. Brian Musgrave for a second term in District 1. Heather Osborne for a second term in District 5. And Jessica Smith for a second term for an at-large slot for Keep York County Beautiful. And Walter Martinson for a first term on the Board of Assessment Appeals for District 6. And our finance guy forgot we had a meeting, so we didn't get our finance update today.
Nice going, Kevin. May need to look for a new finance man. Any new council member, new non-agenda comments? Mr. Roddy, I saw his hand first. Okay.
I beat you to it. I just wanted to kind of reiterate with staff. I was kind of looking for some kind of update on our employee outing over at Winthrop with the basketball game. I've been kind of thinking about it, and I want to kind of get that on track to move forward, and hopefully we can get some figures before our next meeting for this council to go ahead and approve a very small budget to move forward with that. I think Linda's already been working on some numbers. We just have to get with her and select a date and get a final cost for us to treat our employees and family members to a basketball game as part of our appreciation for them and what they do for us on council. So I guess that comment was more to staff to kind of let's have a follow-up where we need to be.
Dr. Blackwell.
I just wanted to point out to the council, it looks like I ended up being the representative for the council at the MLK breakfast, but the point I want to make as actually a member of First Baptist Church where it was held, I have never seen that many people before. I mean, it was cars on sidewalks. It had to be 1,000 people there. So it was a very, very good event.
Ms. Love.
I just don't want anybody to think I was absent. I was at Clover's first MLK breakfast, and it was also very successful. They did a great job, and you know, I think that I think everyone should attend those meetings. It's a great way to start the day. It's a great way to start the week, and it's a great way to start the year. It's just very inspirational, and the pastor who spoke in Clover actually. He did such a great job that I'm actually going to be visiting his church this coming Sunday.
Mr. Winkler.
I guess while we're on that subject, I'll mention that York and Western York County NAACP had their Martin Luther King breakfast Friday morning, and I was at that. And for those of you that missed it, the speaker was the speaker who was at the last Veterans Memorial Service. And it was a young lady who was the first African-American female graduate of the Naval Academy. And she has a very inspirational story if you've never heard her. And also, this past Saturday, y'all missed the longest running Martin Luther King parade in the state of South Carolina. I got to ride in a county fire truck for that one, so, but it was a good event, good parade. The attendance was off a little bit because it was a little chilly on Saturday. But it was a good parade as well. So it's a great weekend all the way around, you know, honoring a great man, and we need to continue to honor him every chance we get. So.
Ms. Cox.
I didn't prepare my remarks for this, but for those of you who know me and know why I ran for council, it had to do with a situation where some private landfill operator, and I'm not opposed to landfills. What I am opposed to is when you give bad information and you try to take advantage of people to get what you want. And there was an attempt to put a landfill in our county that we didn't need, that was going to actually be giving free dumping to one of our municipalities. They called it a recycling center when it was actually going to be a 90-foot high planned pile of junk. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons that I got involved, is because I felt like the little guy's not being looked after. This is on the poorer side of town that doesn't have the protections. They don't have the kind of influential people that show up to a meeting and fight that sort of thing. It bothered me. So from 2004, and what I found out this week was that not only has this council stood up for the right thing, fought a situation that shouldn't have been there, fought off another lawsuit where the proposed landfill operator was going to seek millions of dollars against the county. We were all successful on all those fronts, and I learned this week that that particular property was donated now to the Nations Forward Land Trust. I'm asking this, that's a huge victory. It's a huge victory for the people. God, it's taken 15 years. I can't believe it's taken that long. But I would ask this council to be aware of that. Let's celebrate that, and let's maybe try to do something good for this area. The board at the Nation for Land Trust has gotten to figure out what they're going to do with it. They've talked about planting trees. I think we can do better than that. I think we can give these folks on this side of town something better, something good, something that will improve their lives, and I challenge our council to look at that.
Any other? Are there any citizen concerns? I see one person in the crowd would like to name and address, please.
Tim Newman, 616 Alberta Lane, Fort Mill. My only concern is that, he's gonna kill me for this, but this guy sitting over here, his tag is interim county manager, and if it was up to me and I was sitting up there, I'd make him county manager. That's all.
Is there a motion for executive session?
Yes, sir. Make a motion, we go into executive session for receipt of legal advice on proposed contractual matter to deal with the Rock Hill TIF request and receipt of legal advice on Project Avalanche.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? We are in executive session. We are going to go upstairs to the third floor where they have heat. And we will be in what room, Karen? Room 3401. Thank you. The county council has exited executive session. As there are no motions to be made, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.